Hello, everyone. We say hello in chat. All right. Tonight, we're going to talk about cultural replacement and borders. Borders being the thing of the moment because we've got a huge caravan of immigrants heading toward our border. And just tonight, President Trump has sent troops to the border. I know that Fort Hood has at least 70 buses of soldiers loaded up with weapons, full battle, battle ready. I can only assume that means that there's been authorized use of force, but Trump or no one in the administration has said that. And so it's become a big issue. People say, do you approve of use of force on the border? And what would be the lateralist view on it? So first of all, any military's number one function is to protect the borders of the nation. Without any borders and without the government protecting the borders, there's no reason to protect anything else. The economy and everything is secondary to your borders. And the only way you can preserve your culture is through limitations on immigration and secure borders. People won't do business with a country that doesn't have secure borders. It's everything. So I do approve of the use of force and the military on our borders. I would hope that our military wouldn't need to use any force against a caravan of that many people, including women and children. And it's important to acknowledge that this caravan does actually have women and children in it. The economic migration that we're seeing in Europe out of the African nations, that's being, touted as Libyan, it's almost all males. And they're young men. They're not even old men. This isn't the case with this caravan of people. These people are clearly trying to escape a situation. The situation they're trying to escape is socialism and poverty. But some of them are escaping the Honduras. There actually are some people from the Honduras. It's been widely reported that George Soros is paying for it. A lot of people want to not consider that a conspiracy theory, but even across Mexico, it's being reported that he hasn't denied it. In fact, there's been several claims from his offices that they have donated money to the cause, as they called it. So it's clear that he has put money into that caravan one way or another for whatever reason. So I don't think you could label it a conspiracy. I think probably the questionable side of it is a lot of people are saying you just bust or shipped all these people there and then formed them as a group, told them to march toward America right before the midterms. I don't understand how that would help Democrats. And George Soros normally backs the Democrats. He's a modern socialist, so he's widely behind their change. Let me see what this message says. So I don't know. I'm not sure, how anyone thinks that could help the Democrats. I guess it could. If you're pro-immigration and that sort of thing, which that's the stance right now. But either way, I think that I don't think that he just completely created this caravan of people. Although I'm sure he definitely has no problem using them to his advantages. The other big thing of the day that's going on right now is we've got this bomb hoax, and it's a hoax, folks. The bombs aren't even bombs. That's been confirmed by the FBI. They look sort of like bombs if you don't know anything about a bomb, but they're not bombs. And again, this is people are saying, well, it's because of Trump. That's highly improbable. The media, the liberal media has used far more violent language against Trump and conservatives than Trump ever has against whatever, immigrants or anything. I've been to his rallies. I've been to pretty much all of the big player politicians. I've been to their rallies. Went to a Trump rally 2016, just before the election. I went there because they were burning it was supposed to be burning a giant American flag. I went there and took the flag away from the people. And I was almost arrested, but I was able to argue the point that the flag had been discarded because it was on the ground. Which is what the flag code says, and also the Supreme Court has agreed with that in the past. Had to fight a little. It's just the way it is sometimes. I don't promote violence as an answer to things, but certainly it can be an answer if it needs to be. I don't believe in NAP, and we're going to go into that here in a little while. For people who don't believe what the NAP is, it's the non-aggression principle that is widely touted mostly by libertarians, but other people as well. I'm not a pacifist. I believe in using violence as self-defense, but in a case like this, I think that the nations of the symbols of the nation are important. I don't put them ahead of human lives or anything of that nature, but they're important. Sorry about my little dogs. Believe me, that's dogs. It's chihuahuas, no matter what it sounds like. They're kind of crazy. Anyways, I went there to take the flag, and I did. And what ended up happening is I wasn't coming in to get into the Trump rally because Trump rallies fill up so quick you can't get in normally. And I didn't find about to the last minute. But I went there, and then we got there, and there was really nothing going because the police had such under control. You know, this isn't a northern state or you know, like California where the police just let the anti-protesters, what do you want to call them, Antifa and those sort, just run over them. The Dallas police having nothing to do with it. They had the whole thing completely under control. The flag was there for the taking, and we took it, and that was that. But you know, we were there, and then we got invited into the Trump rally because we were right up front. And so we went around and we did a little journalism. We took pictures of people in there and stuff, and took pictures that, you know, I'd say the crowd was probably 70% white, but that's about it. I mean, there was still a lot of minorities in there. And, you know, we met the guy that was running for railroad commissioner and all this sort of stuff. And so, you know, I don't know. I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is that you have to do things to protect your culture. And so I'm okay with the border. I'm okay with a lot of things. And as far as the bombs go, you know, I think in my mind, right, I don't have any proof of this. I have no doubt this is someone who backs the Democrats. It's a hoax. It's to scare people into going voting. You know, we've got Google and all them. They've just banned several thousand conservative pages and Christian pages. I mean, like Twitter alone took off over 860 by their own account, by their own post. They took over 860 conservative and Christian website or Twitter sites down. Folks, this is about election fraud. This is about manipulating the election. This is what the alleged Russian, you know, collusion was all about. That was more or less a fake story. This is real, you know, using fake bombs and promoting, you know, runs on our border. And, you know, it's to get, you know, they wanted Trump to send troops. So they say, oh, look, he's a authoritarian. Now that's the message they're trying to send. Look, he's a fascist because he'll use troops. And look, his people are sending bombs. And it's all lies, people. I'm not telling you to vote Republican or Democrat or whatever. I'm just telling you these are all lies, and to know that they're lies. And I think that I don't care who you do vote for, but I would hope that anyone that is a promoter of lateralism right now would not vote Democrat in this election. You vote however you want, but that, you know, if people like this live stream is about, I guess, you know, there was a conversation. There was actually some chats about last time. Well, what's it about? To me, this live stream right now is about how I feel about lateralism. I want it to be about more. I want to have guests and stuff, but that's where we're at right now. It's new. And so this is just for me to tell people how they feel. And I just feel like, I just don't understand how anybody can vote Democrat. I mean, even if you forget the socialist motivations behind everything they're doing, it's just the tactics are ridiculous. I mean, so what if you don't like the way Donald Trump talks? Let's look at what he does. I mean, he hasn't done anything wrong. And so I think sending troops to the border goes right along with that. That's not wrong either. And so what you're going to see now is the left. I hate to use it. The leftist media and all that are going to, like I said, they're going to label them authoritarian. That's what this is about. It's ridiculous. I've done the same thing, and I'm no authoritarian. But anyways, we'll get into the cultural replacement and our borders. So, what cultural replacement is about, and it's a hugely important concept to lateralism, but it's a huge concept to anybody that they should understand. Is empires don't fall by the people disappearing or the government disappearing. I've argued this lots of times. So the common example everybody uses is Rome. And I can use Rome. I've used it myself. You can use Greece. But the point is that if you have a group of people, let's use the Nordics for example. Let's use the Danes, the Danish. All right, they used to be a Viking culture, and as far as I know, I think their mythology was with Thor. I mean, not Thor, Odin, and Odinism. Okay, and I don't know how long they were Odis, but the point is that their entire culture was evolved around that religion. And that was their moral founding. And so their actions against other people reflected the morality of their religious beliefs. And to Christians, they're quite violent. To the Vikings themselves, it's just normal. I mean, they had human sacrifice. A lot of people say people automatically know, natural reality, secular reality, or morality. They know not to kill people, for example, not to rape. Well, it's not true. If you know that, it's because you have a derivative morality from a religious morality that told you otherwise. And we talked about this last show. You can form a moral code outside of religion, but it hasn't happened yet. And so the reason why I bring this up is because what happened to the Vikings is that they were believers of Odin for a long time. And then gradually they became a Christian society. Well, what happened when they became a Christian society is the Viking culture died. It disappeared. And that's what killed it off. It wasn't because they lost some great wars or people, became sick and became... The culture never, the actual society itself, of the people, a group of people, never ceased to exist. In fact, it continued growing throughout this whole period. But what happened was they were culturally replaced by the Christians, and the same thing took place in Rome. All right. If it's if you view it positive, then probably you're going to promote that sort of thing. But what you have to understand is that cultural replacement's real, and it can take place a couple of ways. But the two primary ways that cultural replacement takes place is by shifting moral beliefs, generally a change of religious attitudes, or immigration. You can let a whole lot of Christian people immigrate into a Christian nation, and you can still wind up with a cultural replacement. We wound up with a cultural shift when a lot of the Irish people immigrated here. However, it wasn't too far off from what we already believed, so it wasn't a problem. But had the Irish at that time all believed in Buddhism, for example, we very well might have wound up with a cultural replacement. And this is something that you have to protect against. That's one of the things the government's supposed to protect you against. And so the borders are your insulator. That's your protection against immigration. You can only protect the morality within the country through conservation of your moral integrity. And so what that brings us to is the current sort of primary parties in America, which is the Libertarians and the Democrats and the Conservatives. Now, or the Republicans, I mean. Now, I want to talk about that because, for one, I've had a few people ask, aren't you a Libertarian? I run for office as a Libertarian. And I can explain why, but I mean, in a nutshell, it's because my ideology doesn't fit in anywhere. And I just never have registered as a Republican. I could run as a Republican. It wouldn't be a problem. And in fact, I might in the future. I think I said that last time too. But as it is, I've ran as a libertarian. Now, I don't completely agree with some of the fundamental beliefs of libertarianism. And I just mentioned the main one that I have a problem with. And these are shifts, by the way, in libertarianism. These weren't always the reality of libertarianism. The NAP, the non-aggression principle, which you call the NAP, it was not always part of it, of the belief system. It just gradually grew into it. And the other thing is that libertarians have never believed in open borders. This is like a really, really recent change. Some libertarians will still say they don't, which that's good. But in general, the party gives a stance. The National Party gives a stance that implies that they back open borders because of free trade, free market. It's not a good thing. All right, so I don't agree with that. You can trade without having open borders. That's ridiculous. They're two completely different things. It's like when you say you want to close your borders and secure them, and then the person automatically replies with, well, we can't be isolationist. Isolationist has nothing to do with secure borders. And you can trade with every nation in the world and have the most secure borders in the world at the same time. So the two are not related. There's not even an indirect relationship between the two. So lateralism, 100% absolute closed and heavily regulated borders. This is one of the things that I'm accused of being a ultra conservative for. But we're about to talk about that. Okay, so libertarians, my biggest difference ideology is the NAP. And the reason is because I think that the NAP is a flawed philosophy just in its very nature. Basically what it says is that you can't use aggression against another unless aggression has been used against you first. Or don't use aggression, basically, unless you're defending yourself. Which is good. I mean, that sounds okay as it is. But then the problem becomes is like, what do you consider aggression? And I've had this argument with so many libertarians, and it's almost impossible to have this discussion because the honest truth is the general makeup of the Libertarian Party is it's pseudo-intellects trying to look smart, they're following the intellectual sort of group. Or it's people that are stoners, and would just want legalized pot, which that's fine. Or you've got the people that are mad at the police and the government, and they're wannabe anarchists. It's like they follow a political party, but call themselves anarchists. As far as I'm concerned, that is pretty much just, it's just a ridiculous, how can you claim to be an anarchist and be part of a political party? So whatever. They say they can have all their defenses of that. I don't really care. The point is that that's what you primarily get. Now, what you also get some really strong intellectual candidates, which is why I still will associate with the Libertarian Party, because the cream of the crop in the Libertarians are probably the cream of the crop in all of our politicians anywhere, which is unfortunate because they don't get elected. But, if we come back to the NAP, it's, we come back to that thing about aggression. And so you have to argue with people, what is aggression? And they'll try to say, one of the things that they'll say is that it's physical force. Okay. Well, so let's say that the NAP is about direct physical action. All right. So let's take an example. I wrote them down here just so we can. If we take the following example for the NAP, and this is if you believe that it requires physical force. It says, if it's a violation against the NAP and you're someone hacks into your bank account and steals all your money, what I'm asking is that a violation? Well, if they've hacked into your bank account and stole all your money, according to the belief or the interpretation of the NAP that it's about physical force, then they haven't directly acted against you. So that's not against the NAP and you don't have any recourse. If you're a diehard libertarian who believes in the NAP, then that's it. You just would have nothing you could do about it. And the reason I say that is because the robber didn't rob you. He robbed the bank. That's an indirect action. You losing money is indirectly related to the fact that he robbed the bank. You can say, well, I lost my money directly related, but it's not directly related because his intent, mens rea, was against the bank. You just happened to lose money. That's an indirect relationship. And so you personally, under the NAP, couldn't do anything about that. I'm sorry, I have a problem with that. If someone steals my money and I know who it is and the authorities haven't done anything about it, I will go after them personally. Like I said, I don't prescribe to the NAP. I don't care about a flawed ideology. If you take my money, I'm coming to find you, right? If I can. So that's that. That's if it's physical, that's what the majority of almost all the people I've talked to are libertarian. That's what they believe. It has to be an actual contact or physical force, but I don't think that's ever what it was intended. And in fact, the earliest people to mention this concept, although they didn't used to call it some did, some didn't call it non-aggressive spiritual, were trying to emulate the beliefs and teachings of Jesus, which Jesus thinks was. I mean, the teachings there are particularly pacifist. It doesn't mean they have to be completely, but they are. And many Christians have in fact, interpreted it as completely pacifist. But then let's say that it's the other way. It can be any act of aggression, right? So you don't have to physically touch anyone. All right, well, see, this automatically becomes a problem. But let's say that NAP is saying you can fight fire with fire. So if someone insults you and is aggressive towards you, you can insult them and be aggressive back. You just can't escalate it, right? So let's try that and see if that works in reality. So say in your town there's a small store, right, a little mom and pop shop that everyone loves. It's got the lowest prices and the best quality stuff in town, right? And then Walmart builds a big, super center there, and everyone starts shopping there. And it doesn't even have to be because the stuff's better or cheaper, right? They just do. Well, under the non-direct aggression applications of the NAP, then you'd be able to then go and take a violent act against Walmart because, their presence would have harmed what you want, which is to shop at your mom and pop shop. Okay, well, that can't really work, can it? Because all that's happened is Walmart has undercut a local competitor. And now you're saying you can use violence against them? So, I mean, if you look at that right there, I've given you direct and indirect, completely philosophical, problems that are for the NAP to just make it invalid as far as I'm concerned. I think that anyone believes that if someone walks up and punches you, you have a right to defend yourself. You don't need some academic term like the NAP to justify hitting that person back or defending yourself. That's just what people are normally taught in all morality. And so what's really happening, right, with NAP is that libertarians are trying to create a replacement moral code for, to replace religion. So like in the United States, whether they intend it or not, they're trying to replace Christianity. Well, this goes into cultural replacement. I have a problem with that. It's not that I am trying to promote Christianity. Well, the point is that lateralism tries to preserve your nation as it is. It's right, and so if you were to change, if you were able to, demonstrate somehow how the NAP is the moral code, right, and it addressed everything, and everybody in the country switched to it, this would no longer be America. It'd just be a name. Be just like the Danish, it's no longer the Denmark that the Vikings believed in. It's just some kind of Western adaptation that really should have a different name. And in truth, they do actually have a different name. We just call them Denmark. But you see what I'm saying? We wouldn't be American anymore. So under the current platform of the Libertarian Party, I do not promote what they support. I don't support that at all. And so I could never be a libertarian in the sense that the Libertarian Party wants. However, I am a libertarian in some senses. It's just that they don't actually, the Libertarian National Party don't promote what real libertarianism is about. So for me, that's the Libertarian Party ruled out, for being valid for lateralism. I mean, you can be a libertarian if you want, but you see what I'm saying. And so, then we think about, what about the Democrats? How do they apply to cultural placement, borders, and lateralism? Well, the Democratic Party, as it is a complete bust from day one. Everything about it. Currently, they're promoting socialism. Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution guarantees a Republican form of government. So that automatically makes socialism anti-constitutional right out the gate. So everybody like Bernie Sanders legally should not be allowed to be in Congress, and everything that the Democrats are doing should be illegal under the Constitution. Well, not illegal to do it, but unconstitutional in their acts. Meaning they can say it all they want because they got freedom of speech, but in practice they can't implement anything. The other problem with Democratic ideal is it's all completely based on change. That's why you hear themselves call themselves liberals or progressives, typically, that support the Democrats. Change for the sake of change is not a good thing. It's always a bad thing. Almost always social justice is a bad thing. And so that's the two sort of fundamental concepts behind the Democrats. Even the name implies, that it's a harmful party as far as Americanism goes. I mean, the whole point is that they're trying to replace the republic format of the United States to a federalist format, a democracy. Democracies are terrible. We've covered this. So, to me, Democrats are bad. I can't. If no one ever took anything away from my videos ever, then the message would be: don't ever vote Democrat. I don't care who you do vote for, but don't vote Democrat. And that doesn't mean I dislike all the Democrats, the people. But what I'm saying is that the philosophy they're pushing is terrible. It will end America. And it has brought us to the brink of collapse right now, which is what really prompted me to really start pushing for lateralism, because we're going to need something else. Because the Constitution has basically fallen. And with it, the government has fallen. We didn't ever recover from the Civil War. Federalism became too strong. This isn't a federation, as some people will claim. I just had this conversation on Facebook, actually, this week. This is absolutely a republic. It is a Confederate republic, is what it really is. But people don't like to use the term because they don't want to be labeled as evil. And why it's a Confederate republic is it's a republic confederation. But if you say Republican Confederation or you say a Confederate republic, either way, somebody's going to be offended. But the point is that we're all equal partners. And we have a federal partner who is supposed to is supposed to negotiate with other countries, not inside the country. And when there is a need, it's supposed to arbitrate. That is all they're supposed to do. They're not supposed to make federal laws and all these things they're doing. And so, if it were a federation, then they would be, by design, writing laws for the rest of the country. They're not supposed to be doing that. That's never supposed to have been a thing. The Constitution is not part of the federal government. So this is the thing that people can't seem to get through their head. I heard someone say today, we got a Supreme Court justice, we got a Congress, and we got the three branches of the federal government. It's like, yeah, we do. And the Constitution is not part of either one of those three. It's outside. The Constitution was signed by all of the member states. It was agreed to. Technically, it wasn't, but we're not going to get into that. It was, but let's just say it was, because it was later ratified by them. That doesn't mean that they handed over the power to the federal government to do anything besides the things that are explicitly said in that document, which is very little. And so, you can't have a socialist approach. It's not a federalist approach. So none of that works for me. Not in terms of the United States political environment and lateralism. It just doesn't work for me. So that leaves us with the Republican Party, but this one's interesting in itself because people often, when they say Republican, they say conservative. And so people say, are you conservative? Well, I have some conservative ideals. But The thing about it is, the Republican Party is not a conservative party. It is a Republican Party. It promotes republicanism. And what I mean by that is it's anti-federalist. A lot of people say things like, I'm a physical conservative. Well, no, you're not, because that's not really a thing. And I'll explain why. What conservatives do, right? Their ideology is to conserve the moral and values of a society. It has nothing to do with economics. Although you can take an economic approach in it, it has nothing to do with economics. So a true conservative, American conservative, will be trying to protect Christianity, the Constitution, state constitutions, states' rights, states' governments. And they would try to preserve that. That's what the Civil War was really about, which is why they called themselves the Confederate States. And they were trying to, basically reject some of these federalist concepts that creeped into our government under the new Constitution. And so basically we're trying to roll back to what they actually agreed to. Slavery was an issue, but was not the cause of the Civil War. And so they were trying to conserve society. It just so happens they were also trying to conserve a really bad part of society, which was slavery. But in the bigger picture, they were trying to conserve, Christian values, Southern states' rights, and completely positive things. And the Union, the North, was trying to force an ideology upon other people. And they were trying to push federalism, and they were the aggressor. And so, that they fought a war. And that's what conservatives are. Republicans, on the other hand, don't necessarily have to be conservative at all. And this is the confusing part for some people. A Republican just believes in a republic. They promote the ideas of a republic. And so what I mean by that is equal partners, equal say. Republicans are all about states' rights. I mean, that's really the phrase and the thing you need to think of when you think of a Republican. The reason why the party has historically promoted this idea of lower taxes, which people then call physical conservatism, but there's really no connection there. As if you're going to cut taxes, then you should cut the budget, which they don't, but that should be happening. Those two should never be divorced of one another, because you can't cut taxes and not cut the budget, right? Well, you can, but it creates a giant deficit, which means you'll have to raise taxes again. So it's stupid. But that's what they've been doing. But that's what a Republican, that's what you would expect. And the reason is because they would want to send, they wouldn't want those funds to go to a federal entity only to return back to the states for what they were needed for, right? What a Republican would want is the states to collect the taxes themselves if they're needed and use them on their own state. Right? A conservative, on the other hand, wouldn't care about taxes at all. So, they would just care about Christianity and morality. They wouldn't even necessarily be states' rights first, although because it's our heritage, they would in the United States. So can you be a conservative Republican? Yes, you can. And it turns out most conservatives in this country are, in fact, conservative Republicans. But what I'm saying is that your conservatism is not what makes you a Republican. And I think it's really important to point out if you're trying to promote lateralism, because lateralism is more of a conservative belief system than republicanism. So that's why I'm making that point. In fact, I would say that lateralism is more of a liberal ideology system than a Democrat. They're modern socialists. And the reason I say that is because I have some things in there that, like the basic income, that would appeal to those people. Certainly you could say, though, that lateralism is mostly a conservative type ideology. And so, the reason I bring that up is to say, well, people say, where does lateralism fit in? Well, it doesn't fit into the spectrum the way people expect. And I had to draw a chart, and I'm going to get it printed up, but I've got it here sketched out on paper. And it's just like, the typical left to right sphere, authority, whatever, just different poles. It turns out it's a little more complicated when you actually want to really chart sort of political beliefs. And so I had to make a chart of my own, and I'll publish that. But basically, lateralism would preserve the original morality of culture, but allowing for necessary changes that benefit everyone. So that sounds a lot like political speak, but it's true. So like it would be different in different countries. So like in America, a lateralist, if they took over right now, they would promote Christianity just like a conservative, because that was the original moral system of this nation. At the same time, a lateralist would never promote a violation of direct liberty. So slavery just wouldn't work. And I don't think, even a modern conservative would say slavery is good either. But the point is that under lateralism, that it never would have been. So, there can be exceptions. For example, a pure conservative is probably going to be against, gay rights, because biblically it says it's a sin. And one of the things I point out to people in lateralism is that even with a religious belief system, you have to be careful, not to violate other people's rights and beliefs just because of your own. So from a Christian sense, it's kind of like, yeah, the person's sinning, but divorce is a sin as well. Sex out of wedlock's a sin as well. Pretty much anything you do in excess is a sin. So I guess what I'm saying is that don't let the Christian moralism override, what's good for everyone, the general welfare. And so that's a lateralist view. Is what I'm saying is lateralists can, a gay issue is not a lateralist issue. It's just a people issue. It's whether you're gay or heterosexual doesn't really make any difference. That's not right in the fence. It's just saying people are going to be different, and lateralism doesn't micromanage anything. It's not microeconomics. It's not macro, sociological things. It's a bigger picture, and so I think that that's what all sort of high level government should be. So like state, government, federal government, I think it should be macro. It should be usable for everyone. It shouldn't force someone to bend to their will. And there's exceptions to that, of course. I can find no valid way to work in exceptions for Islamic Sharia law belief systems. They are incompatible with any Western ideology I know of, and they're incompatible with lateralist beliefs. That's not to say that if you're Muslim, you can't be a lateralist. It just means you can't be a Muslim who follows Sharia law lateralist, which means you're pretty unlikely that you're going to be one, because Islamic faith really integrates Sharia law into it. And even the non-harmful, as people say, Sharia law doesn't work with Western values, simply because it places their being Islamic people belief system ahead of whatever the culture that they're in. And this is where cultural replacement comes back into it. If, say you had, 100,000 Muslims that swore they didn't believe in Sharia law, but secretly they did, but they just didn't promote it, because it was part of their belief system. And you let them into the country, well, even though they might not be outwardly promoting Sharia law, they actually believe it. This is the problem that Jewish people have faced forever, I guess, basically. Jewish people believe in their own, interpretation and beliefs of laws, but there's no Jewish state. This is why, all the Western countries came together and, ratified Israel as it is, Jerusalem, so that there would be a Jewish state, and hopefully they could avoid there ever being a genocide against them again in a Holocaust. That's what that was about. So it was created with good reason, because if all the other nations are Christian, they do seem like, they're fairly compatible religions, so it's not a direct problem in that sense. But it's still a cultural replacement, because then you wind up with these giant communities of Jewish people, and they're not hurting anybody. but they're just different. And so this is why, when we talk about cultural replacement, it becomes important to understand what it is and what it's about. No one's saying that the people that are immigrating in or doing something different have to be hostile or harmful in any way. They can just be who they are, and you will still wind up with a new culture at the end of it, which means you have been invaded successfully. Your culture has been conquered by indirect means that may not have even been intended. And so that's what you have to be careful of. And it's the government's job to protect against that. And so a lateralist government would in fact protect against that. And they would put in whatever measures they had to. If they had to change immigration for America back to what it used to be here in America, so that it was primarily only allowing immigration from Christian Western nations, that's the right thing to do. It doesn't mean you would stop everyone else from coming in. It just means you would limit the numbers so that those percentages were maintained. Because as y'all know, lateralism is all about percentages. And it applies to the sociology as well. And so that's the whole thing about borders. And that's why lateralism promotes strong, heavily defended borders. In fact, I would say your military should be primarily on your borders as far as ground forces. Because then it just makes it that much easier to maintain your borders. And I don't see any reason to move them. I mean, there's obvious military reasons why not to have everyone there, but I'm just saying that the bulk should be right on the borders. We're not trying to build a Mazenay line like France had. Germans just run right over it, and it could happen to us too. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that the bulk should be there, and that's the lateralist belief. And so, I mean, that's where we're at with cultural replacement and borders, and that's our subject tonight. I don't really have anything else. I have some questions, but I think I'm going to save them for next week. Not too many. I mean, I guess the only one that stood out. People have a real I've noticed people that watch streams have a real thing about watching what's behind you and stuff. So I had two questions I did want to ask. And one person said, "Why do I fidget so much when I'm doing these live streams?" And this person seen me speaking in person, which is why they asked. The person said, "I've seen you do public speaking lots of times, and you were perfectly relaxed." Well, the truth is, just talking to a camera in a room by myself makes me really uncomfortable. I don't know if nervous is the right word. It makes me fidgety. I would rather be talking to someone, and this stream will have to evolve into that if I'm going to keep doing it. Because I don't like talking to myself. I mean, I know what I'm thinking already, and that's how it feels. I know I'm doing a video, but that's just how it feels. At least I don't do that in public. If anybody's seen me speak in public, I do a lot of public events. The crowds don't bother me. It's just more people listening, and it feels like you're talking to people. It's just a sort of a party environment to me or something. I don't know. The other question was, someone asked me, "Is that an elephant behind you?" Well, or they said, "Is that an elephant or is that a cow?" Is what the question was. Well, it's both. So that, give me a second. That, let's kind of bring it back here. That's an elephant, also. And that's carved out of elephant tusk, which my grandfather brought home from World War II. I know, taboo by today's standards, but whatever. It's already done. The tusk was already peeled. He didn't kill the elephant. Now, these aren't cows like what the person meant, but these are also buffalo, when you can see them clear. My great uncle, who also fought in the war, carved this with a knife, not actual tools. He carved this out of a chunk of wood, just with his pocket knife. And I don't know how long he took doing that, but he was injured at some point. So when you're injured in the military, you have a lot of time on your hands. So I assume that's when he started it, and I don't know when he finished it, but I wound up with it. So that's the only two questions about my desk back there this week. Don't really have anybody in the chat. We haven't got along. We haven't developed that far into our podcast yet to have that kind of audience, but we're working on it. And I'm still working on the lives, putting the website up and have more information on there. I'm still trying to make videos. It's difficult. I wish I had someone that was just really good at videos. We could probably whoop these things out. We probably whoop every single lateralism video out about every subject in probably a week if I had someone who knew what they were doing with videos. So anybody out there in the world wants to volunteer to take that on, that would be awesome. But until then, we'll work on it. I'll see y'all next week. And depending on how the border plays out, we might talk about that situation directly, just because it could become hostile or politically interesting to the point where I think it should be talked about. If not, there's a couple of subjects I was thinking about. I think I'll be a surprise because I'm not sure where I want to go with it. Maybe the introductory part of the basic income. Anyways, good night. Thanks for watching. As always, like and share the video if you can.